Was he slow? No. Good kid. Devil behind the wheel. Was he slow? Retarded means slow. Was he slow? No. What the hell else more do you need to know? Devil behind the wheel. Retarded means slow. Was he slow?
Hello everybody, it is that time of year again. It's time for me to talk about my top 10 favorite movies of 2017. Now, this is one of my favorite videos that I like to do because throughout the year I kind of prepare for this video at the end of the year. I'm always like ranking the movies as I see each movie that I see in 2017. So I also have done like a list of every single movie I've seen this year on IMDb where I gave a little score. Just like a little, it's not even a review, it's just me giving a score. So if you want to see a list of every single movie I saw this year and a brief score of what I thought of it, you can look at it in the description below. I have a link to it. Because this year there are a few movies that I did not review in a full-on video, but I did see this year. And some of those movies, in fact, are on this list because I had to catch up on a lot of movies and I didn't have time to do videos on each of them. This year was fantastic. Making this list was not easy in the slightest because there's so much great stuff that came out this year that it was hard to order them in the correct way. I'm not gonna lie, I have stuff on this list that everyone's gonna expect to see, but I also have some movies that are smaller and not a lot of people saw, and I'm hopefully gonna bring awareness to that. And of course, this is my list. It's okay if things differ between you. We all gotta be civil about it. It's an opinion on a movie. It is not a big deal. You need to all just chill out if a movie you hate is on here. But before I start, I gotta go with the obvious. I gotta mention my honorable mentions, and those are THOR RAGNAROK, a Marvel movie that I really enjoyed, especially because of how funny it was and how it embraced how ridiculous superhero movies are. I also got Split, M. Night Shyamalan's Return. I made a whole video about why I like this movie so much. I got Star Wars The Last Jedi. This is a movie that I liked a lot. It took tons of risks, but I still don't think it's flawless after second viewing. I got It, the really creepy nightmare fuel movie from Stephen King. I got Lego Batman, a movie that was hilarious in every way and had a lot of heart to it. I got Get Out, a really original horror movie that was really enjoyable to see. And I've got Beauty and the Beast, probably the best remake I've ever seen. Those are movies that I really like a lot, but they didn't quite make the list, so hopefully you check those out in the future because they almost made the best of 2017 list. And now, let's get to the actual list, starting off with number 10. You've probably never heard of this movie. This is more of an indie movie. It's by A24, a studio that makes a lot of indie movies, and this movie is basically like this crime thriller. I saw it shortly before I did my best list. It stars Robert Pattinson, that actor that everyone hates because of Twilight, including myself. But after seeing him in this movie, I am blown away. Like, Robert Pattinson can really act, actually. It was kind of crazy how good he was in this movie. I think he deserves an Oscar nom, even though he won't get it, but he was fantastic in this movie. The movie has such a style to it. It has like the synth score, it's very rapidly edited, very fast-paced, and for some people that may bother them, but I found the style to be really intriguing and a really unique style for this movie. And it's never style over substance because the contents that are in this movie is a really good story with really fantastic characters, and it's also very depressing and sad because this movie is about crime, it's about Robert Pattinson's handicapped brother who has a mental issue. It's a very intense, sad movie that takes a lot of risks, and a lot of things aren't for the faint of heart in this movie. It is a very disturbing movie, but it all pays off in the end. It's such a great crime thriller. The music is also fantastic. The lighting is some of the best lighting I think I've seen in a movie, actually. The lighting in this movie is so good. It's unpredictable. Robert Pattinson is doing all this awful stuff that's terrible, like a terrible person, but at the same time you find yourself rooting for him and you kind of feel guilty about it because he's kind of the scum of the earth. Good Time was absolutely a good time. I like that title a lot, actually, because this movie is really great. Christopher Nolan did it again. Dunkirk was fantastic. A lot of people didn't really like this movie because it was like they didn't like the characters, they thought it was boring. But this movie, I always saw it as being about the event. This movie was about the event of Dunkirk. The characters are there, but they're not the main focus of the movie, which is kind of a unique way to approach a war movie. My favorite thing about Dunkirk is how original it was. This movie was so original compared to other war movies. You see other war movies talking about, like, they have moments with the characters and they were like, I miss my family, I miss my blah blah blah, all those cliches, which aren't necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of movies that do that really well, but Dunkirk never lets up. It is constantly just about the battle that's going on screen. They develop the characters based on actions rather than them telling their backstory, which I found to be a really unique way to tell this story. There's all kinds of unique things about this movie, and I've never really seen a war movie like it. It really has that Nolan stamp on it. The Hans Zimmer score is fantastic. The filmmaking is unbelievably good. The sound design, the war scenes, everything about Dunkirk is pretty much fantastic.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hey, Johnny, what's up?
The Disaster Artist. This was the last movie I reviewed before I did my best list, and I love this movie to death. This movie is so good. As a guy that really loves The Room, like, because of how bad it is, as a guy that really loves everything about The Room, I found this movie to be incredibly satisfying. It is a movie that isn't just a parody of The Room. It is a movie that tells the story of Tommy Wiseau, makes you actually feel sympathy for him. It's consistently funny and made me laugh, but it's also very inspiring, and it has some heartfelt scenes that are actually a little bit emotional. This movie is incredibly inspiring, and after you watch it, you always just want to go out and make a movie. James Franco should be nominated for an Oscar for this. I will be very upset if he isn't, because he transformed into Tommy Wiseau and actually made you feel sympathy for this goofy guy that everyone saw as a joke before this movie came out. Being able to make you feel sympathy for someone as crazy and out there as Tommy Wiseau needs to be praised. James Franco needs to be nominated for an Oscar for this movie, and he's not the only thing that's great about it. Dave Franco does a really good job too. Seth Rogen is very funny. Disaster Artist was terrific. It wasn't a disappointment in the slightest. Coco. This is my favorite animated movie of 2017. It feels like every time I do a top 10, an animated movie gets on there of some sort. It's either like Pixar or Laika, or this time it's Pixar again. This movie brought me to tears. I thought it was terrific in every way. Like I said in my review, this is a movie that's really unique and different and clever, and it's not a movie that just does everything that a kid's movie should do, like some other movies I saw this year.
I still have the diamond! Happy birthday, dear Dan! Happy birthday to you!
It has tons of great themes and messages. There's not just one message in this movie, there's actually several things you can take away from it. It has so many unpredictable directions that it goes in. And this movie is also very risky. It takes a lot of risky choices that were like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they just went that route. The animation is gorgeous, the characters are fantastic, the humor is great. It is such a good movie for families because adults will get so much out of it and kids will really enjoy it too. But adults will get the most out of it. So often do I see people posting about Trolls, like watching Trolls with their kids and going like, this is a great movie to watch with my kids, or saying, I want to watch The Boss Baby with my kids, I want to watch the Emoji Movie with my kids. Those movies have nothing to them. See Coco instead. This movie should be seen in a family setting, and it is terrific from start to finish. Pixar really did it again. Number 6 is 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. If you've heard about this movie, you've probably heard fantastic things about it. It is a movie that I watched very recently, actually. I watched it the day before I made this video. And this movie is getting fantastic buzz for good reason, because it is so good. The only thing I don't really like about 3 Billboards is that the ending is a little bit abrupt. That's it. The entire rest of this movie is shocking, it is depressing, it is risky, it does a lot of things that movies won't usually have the guts to do. It has several Oscar-worthy performances. Frances McDormand in this movie is Oscar-worthy. I know she's gonna get nominated for an Oscar because this movie's gonna get tons of Oscar buzz, I can tell. And out of the actresses I've seen in this movie, she probably deserves it more than anyone else because she is terrific throughout this movie. She's heartbreaking, she's funny, she's angry, she's cynical, she is fantastic in this movie. Woody Harrelson is also fantastic as always, but also one of the standouts that surprised me was Sam Rockwell. Holy moly, this is the best I've seen him in a movie. Sam Rockwell I've always seen as the funny guy. He was always like this comedian guy. In this movie he does have some funny scenes because there's some good humor in this movie as well, but he also is so heartfelt in this movie. He is so great in this film. I couldn't believe it. The detective aspect of this movie is fantastic. All the filmmaking on display is great. It's one of those dialogue-heavy movies that really works, like, say, a Steven Spielberg movie like Bridge of Spies is. There's so many shocking moments that are just insane and crazy, and it's such a fantastic time. You need to see this, because I know it's going to be nominated for Best Picture and a bunch of the Oscars, and it deserves it. And it's something that you absolutely should see, because it is such a great movie. This movie is fantastic, and everything about it is great. Number 5 is the conclusion to a franchise that I have always loved. I've loved it for a long time, ever since I saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes when I was a younger kid, and I was like, oh my goodness, this movie's great, and that is War for the Planet of the Apes. Surprisingly enough, this movie got more backlash than I thought it would. A lot of people found there to be plot holes, and a lot of people found there to be things that don't tie in with the old movies very well. But I could easily argue all of those. I mean, you just have to think a little bit, and you could be like, oh, that's how it could tie into the originals. I mean, it does things that are surprising. And the Planet of the Apes franchise has always been about guessing. There's always been mysteries in the Planet of the Apes franchise, so it didn't bother me that it tried to connect to the originals in certain ways that have to keep you guessing a little bit more to connect them together. Andy Serkis in this movie is Oscar-worthy, like he always is. I mean, every movie he's in, he's probably Oscar-worthy. Not everyone, but most of them he's in, he is fantastic. A lot of people were like, hey, where's the war? Where's the war in the apes? Why is there no war? First of all, there was quite a few battle scenes in this movie. There's quite a few scenes that are warlike. I don't know why people said that there wasn't a war. What did you expect, a huge action scene throughout the entire movie? Is that what you wanted? Not only is it a war between apes and humans, but it's also about the war inside of Caesar's head. He's put through the ringer more than he ever has been in the previous 2 movies. He is put through the ringer in this movie, and he's fighting with his inner demons throughout this entire movie, and it's so riveting. Everything involving Caesar is massively riveting. Woody Harrelson, he's been in 2 spots on my best list, and he is incredible in this movie too. He's such a great villain. I love his performance so much in this movie, and I can't wait to see him in the Han Solo movie, because he's probably going to be the best part. The visual effects are incredible as always. Everything is so emotional and so incredibly well done. Conclusion-wise, everything in this movie is satisfying, and I love watching it. I want to watch it again, because it's so great. Like, everything about this movie is fantastic, and yes. Okay, this is probably a movie you've never heard of in your life. For those of you who don't know what this movie is, it's an indie movie, so not a lot of people probably know about it, and it stars Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill has a substantial role in this movie, but the thing is, when I went into this movie, I didn't know a thing about it, because people had told me that it was fantastic and incredible, and you have to go in knowing nothing, so I didn't watch a single trailer, I didn't read a plot synopsis, I just went in knowing that it was about a bear, and Mark Hamill was in it, and that's all you need to know. Don't look it up. Just watch it. I'm so sad that not a lot of people are seeing Brigsby Bear, because this movie, there's so much good stuff about it. It is very bizarre and artsy, but in all the right ways. Kyle Mooney in this movie, the guy who wrote and starred in this movie, deserves an Oscar nom. He won't get it. I'm fully aware. But if I was running the Oscars, I would absolutely nominate him, because he is so incredible from start to finish. He plays this fish out of water character, and he was funny. He was likable. He was heartbreaking at times. Everything about this performance works so perfectly. Mark Hamill, I don't want to say anything about him. I'm not saying anything about this movie in general, but he is fantastic from start to finish in this movie. I'm surprised that this movie was a Mark Hamill movie that I liked even more than The Last Jedi. That's how good it is. It's incredibly unique. I've never seen a movie like this at all. I couldn't even figure out what this was inspired by. Because a lot of people don't realize that every movie is inspired by something. Every time you make a movie, you're inspired by something to make it, whether it be a movie or a book or whatever. It's always inspired by something, and I can usually sometimes see what the movie is inspired by at times, But Brigsby Bear, it's impossible to see what it's inspired by because everything is so incredibly original. It's super unpredictable, it's super funny, it's tear-jerking, it's about everything. It's kind of similar to Birdman in the sense that it is very bizarre and different and weird, and it's also about everything at the same time. It has so many themes. It's about filmmaking, it's about awkwardness, it's about family, it's about criminals, it's about TV show, it's about dreams, it's about obsessions. It's about how ignorance can be bliss. Everything about Brigsby Bear was terrific, and even though it's bizarre and different, I think there's something for everyone in this movie. Even little kids, even though little kids shouldn't be watching this, would really enjoy it. Logan. Like I said, there are some movies on here that you're going to expect to see, and Logan is absolutely one of them. Everybody has this on their best list, everyone has it somewhere, and for good reason, because this is one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen. It is my second favorite, just under The Dark Knight. Everything in this movie is incredible. Hugh Jackman is great. The noir western storyline type thing is such a great style. I love everything about the style of this movie. Hugh Jackman, like I said, it's one of his best performances, and he deserves to be Oscar nominated easily. Patrick Stewart in this movie should be probably nominated too. This is one of his best performances as well. This brings out the best acting from everyone in it because it's such an emotionally draining story with incredible action that is brutal and doesn't hold back. I've seen this movie way too many times. It inspired some of the things in the short film I did earlier this year. Logan is terrific from start to finish. I mean, what else do I need to say about it? Everyone's talked about this movie. Everyone has it on their lists. Just see it if you haven't already. Blade Runner 2049. This movie is, like, everything about it is incredible. There's, like, not a single thing in this movie that I can pinpoint that I actually dislike. Everything about this movie is pretty much cinematic perfection from start to finish. Blade Runner has been a universe that could have been expanded long ago, but they never did. It took them this long. And this is a movie that could have been like setting up a cinematic universe of Blade Runner movies. It could have been setting up the new generation of Blade Runner, but it doesn't. This is just Denis Villeneuve telling his own story as a huge fan of Blade Runner. It brings us back to this universe and introduces Ryan Gosling, who is incredibly complex in this movie and fantastic. It brings us a new story that keeps us guessing and is incredibly intriguing from start to finish. Harrison Ford in this movie is incredible, maybe even better than he was in Force Awakens. I can't really decide because in Force Awakens he was so good, but in this movie he might be even better. Visual effects are fantastic, the action scenes are tension-filled. It is a dark, depressing movie, and I loved every second of it. It was so emotionally satisfying and fantastic in every way. And it also has Frank Sinatra in it, which kind of helps make it as good as it is. You all saw this coming a mile away. Baby Driver is one of the best action movies I've ever seen. Blade Runner is one of the best sci-fi movies I've ever seen, and Baby Driver is one of the best action movies I've ever seen. Constantly when I watch action movies, a bunch of people love it and say like, oh, this movie's the best thing ever because it has great action. But I like more of a story along with the great action. I like more of a complex story and really good tension because I always see action movies that are like, yeah, that's really cool, but there's like nothing else to them. There's not a great story. It's very predictable and formulaic. And Baby Driver takes that and does something totally different with the action genre. It had scenes that played along with the music. Tons of scenes in this movie are along with musical themes. Ansel Elgort in this movie is fantastic. He is relatable. He's great. There are so many scenes in this movie that are filled with so much tension, but there's also so much great comedy and things you can take out of it. Kevin Spacey, say what you want about him, but he is a fantastic actor and shows that so well in this movie. He is so good. I love his character. John Hamm is incredible. Jamie Foxx is the best he's probably been as far as I've seen. It brings out the best acting in everybody. It has fantastic acting. It has great themes to it. It has so much different, unique, unpredictable things about it. This movie reminds me why I want to make films. I was watching this movie in the theater and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be my best movie of the year, isn't it? And sure enough, nothing topped it. Nothing topped it for me. One of my highlights of this year probably was Edgar Wright liking one of my tweets on Twitter that I did at him. That was insane because Edgar Wright is one of the best directors working today. He is so incredible, and his style is so well realized. He makes unique movies that are different, and I wish people saw them more, but Baby Driver got more money than a lot of his other movies did, and that was really nice to see, because this movie deserves to be seen by everyone. If you think this movie is just going to be an over-the-top, Fast and the Furious type movie, it's not. I mean, it's different and it is kind of crazy at times because it's Edgar Wright, and Edgar Wright is always crazy. But it's not one of those dumb action movies that's just like, oh yeah, I got to see a thing blow up. It has so much tension, it has so much to it, it has incredible characters that are some of the best characters I've seen in years. It has the most rewatchability. Everything about Baby Driver is why I watch movies and why I love them and why I review them and why I make them. Everything about Baby Driver just reminds me why I do this. And there's easily nothing that tops it this year for me. Alright guys, that was my best list of 2017. It has been such a great year. This list was really hard to make, and it has been such a great year for me in personal life as well. I've had so many great things happen to me, and I can't wait to share the next year with you all. And also, I'm going to be doing a worst list as well, so this isn't over. I gotta do a worst list too, so look out for that. Alright guys, I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Was he slow? No. Good kid. Devil behind the wheel. Was he slow? Retarded means slow. Was he slow? No. What the hell else more do you need to know? Devil behind the wheel. Retarded means slow. Was he slow? No. Was he slow? Devil behind the wheel.